Hello, I am Dr. Todd Lee. I'm an IFBB Pro and a medical doctor, and I want to talk today about lats. So, we all know the traditional exercises, well, most of us know the traditional exercises of pull-up, bent row, dumbbell row, T-bar row. Those are great for hitting your whole back. Most bodybuilders are lacking in lower lat development, specifically because most back exercises are really good at loading the contracted position of the lat right here, but there's no tension down here at the stretch position. So this is one of the few exercises you can do to isolate the lat in the stretch position. Now, I'm gonna grab this handle, and people are gonna laugh at you because you look like a dumbass. They're like, why are you putting the tension on your wrist, but you're holding this? So Dr. Eric Serrano told me that the reason is we used to be we are primates, but if you ever notice, monkeys climb and they grab with their whole hand, and that helps them climb, and that's what activates your lat better. I love that evolutionary biology or zoology, anthropology, or whatever you want to call it. Now, what I want to do is I want to put tension on the lat right here. If you notice, the forearm and the line of force are at a 90-degree angle, meaning there's maximal tension right now on the lat in the stretch position. And I contract the lat. If I try to pull my hand down with my wrist, I'm going to get a lot of rear delt, which isn't bad because rear delts are great from the side, but we want to hit lat. So I'm going to depress my shoulder. I'm going to bend my knees a little bit, turn my body away, so I'm going across my body, and then I can contract my lower lat. And you can't really see it through my tank top, but there's a part of my lat which is called basically the lumbar origin, or possibly even the iliac origin is being activated right now. Not just the thoracic origin, which we get with the T-bars and the other rows. And so right now, I'm driving my hand down as I pull my shoulder down, and then I pull it in back, trying to scrape my elbow against my torso. And if my feet are contorted like this, my butt's out, you look like a moron. People are gonna laugh at you. But that's okay, because they're not gonna laugh when you stand up and you have lats instead of ILS, imaginary lat syndrome. And I'm gonna contract, squeeze that lat at the bottom to develop that mind-muscle connection. But the real tension at the top is the important part. So you can create greater distance, and you can even make a better contraction by pulling your glutes in as you do these. Now that's an advanced thing that takes a lot of body English and feel. Now my rear delt's getting involved because my lat's starting to fail. That's okay. Now these reps are starting to slow down, which means I'm into my effective rep zone. Yeah, remember to externally rotate that humerus, because it'll start internally rotating on its own. Got one more, I think. So normally I wouldn't take it to absolute failure. Normally I would follow my logbook, and I usually start a mesocycle 3 effective reps. The next week I'll go 2 effective reps. 3 RAR, 2 RAR, 1 RAR. Last week's fail. And then deload, and when I come back, I subtract 3 from the amount that I failed at, and that's my new 3 RR. So if I was to get 11 week 1, 12 week 2, 13 week 3, let's say I get 15 or 16, let's say I get 16 week 4, then when I come back for the next week 1, I subtract 3 from 16, and my new 3 RR is 13. So then I would go 13, 14, 15, and then shoot for as many as I can get. Some people say that's underdoing it. I think it depends on your skill level. If someone's a beginner, I would say go 1 RIR or to total failure on every set. But as you start to develop more and more muscle, it takes longer to recover. So you don't want to dig yourself into the hole so deep. I think John Meadows, RIP, said don't want to dig yourself a hole so deep you can't crawl out of. And so a lot of times as you get bigger, taking stuff to failure, that's the result, unless you only do 1 or 2 sets. And with hypertrophy, it's the number of sets that's close to failure that determines how much stimulus you get for hypertrophy. So 1 set to absolute failure is going to be less effective than 4 sets very near failure by quite a significant margin. I want to cover one of my favorite exercises for middle delts. You probably want bigger delts. I would say middle delts are the most important muscle for men to have, to look bigger, to have a wider. You can't control how tall you are, but you can control how wide you are. Middle delts is that. And a lot of people struggle with this because they end up getting a lot of anterior delt. So I'm going to show you how I do middle delts. This is one of my 2 favorite exercises for middle delts. First, I use a wrist cuff. Now you can create better activation if you squeeze something, even though you're using the wrist cuff. So we're going to grab this right here, elitefts, and you go really light. What I want to do is I want to get a good stretch on that middle delt. This is one of the only ways to stretch the middle, to work the middle delt in the stretch position. If you use dumbbells, you're working against gravity, and so there's no tension down here because gravity is going straight down. With this, the cable creates our line of force. So we could adjust this up a little bit. There you go. And that is completely 90 degrees, creating maximal tension here at the bottom and almost no tension at the top. Because as we know, the muscles are stronger in the stretch position than at this position. Also, normally, to really get the middle delt, we have to bend over a little bit with a dumbbell. But because of this, because we're using a cable in my shaker cup, I can move back and come across the body. And this is the middle delt better than anything else, really. Notice the tempo. I usually pick my song selection based off of what I'm doing. That way, I get to set the tempo of my heart rate, my breathing, to the music. And every rep should look as good as the first rep until you get volitional failure. Now I can feel my middle delt contracting right now, but not my anterior delt and not my rear delt. So the slow eccentric, squeeze the contraction so I can really pump it full of blood. The squeeze doesn't necessarily grow muscle, but it helps with the pump, and the pump helps you with my muscle connection, and my muscle connection helps with hypertrophy. And I don't have to worry about a loaded stretch and pausing here because I've angled the machine just right to put maximal tension at the bottom. Now if I wanted to hit rear delt, I can turn my hand like this, bend over a little bit, and get just the rear delt. So one way to do this is go to absolute failure with the middle delt, and then switch to the rear delt. And you'll still get some middle delt activation. And then you can try to go back. It's kind of like rest pause for the middle delts. But during that rest period, you're working your middle delts. Now if I want to go thumbs up, I can hit the front delt. This is the anterior delt. And they are very cooked. You can do anywhere from 2 to 6 sets of these. Often you want to hit these 3 to 4 times a week, maybe every 48 hours. And you don't necessarily have to use the exact same exercise. You could do traditional dumbbell raises one day, these 48 hours later. A machine, 48 hours after that. And middle delts, I would put as a priority, I would put it at the beginning of a push day. For those people who are very focused with how much they lift, like powerlifting, I don't really think that doing middle delts before you do your benching is going to take away from it. Some of you would say otherwise. I totally understand that. But for people who are doing power building, it's pretty reasonable to put the middle delts before their bench, because you get to prioritize it. You get to do it first, so it's going to be most fresh. It's going to get the best results. I'm going to show you one of my favorite things to do for triceps. So triceps was always a weak body part of mine, probably still is. So if you're like, why would I listen to this guy? He's got crappy triceps. I remember once Flex Lewis had said that his triceps were his worst body part, and many of us realize that those are some of the best triceps of all time. And I feel like it's the people that have bad genes for a body part, they usually figure out all the tricks and try to make them grow. So these arms used to be, I would say, 13 inches about 10 years ago. Daryl Dottie was making fun of me. You guys might remember her. She was a power lifter who was, I think she won like 7 world records or something like that. But she would make fun of me because her arms were bigger than mine. So I put about 10 years into these triceps, and this is my favorite movement for them. And the convenience of this is that where the cable's lined up, what we're doing is we're lining up with our shoulder width. So these little grooves allow you to pick your clavicular length, basically. And I can step in and I can pull my triceps back, actively pulling the triceps back, the elbows back, will stretch out the triceps better. And then once I start to get to failure, which I'm nowhere close to, but when I do, one thing I can do is push together. And that's going to allow the chest to assist. And it works the triceps in a different capacity. So this is more like an extension. And this is more like a press. So we get a regression superset. So I'm just going to do one real set here and see how much we can get out of this. Okay, let me finish this off. Oh, fantastic. And then I like to stretch them after the set. Sometimes I'll use a support beam. Line this up here and grab and push into it. Put back my skull up against my hand and push back to stretch the tricep. By stretching, I'm going to fill it with more, create the room for more blood to flow into it. And then I'll do the other side. If I do 6 sets of pressing, 3 sets of flies, 6 sets of triceps, that's good. But if I add a set of press, I probably should take away from a set of triceps. Otherwise, my triceps won't heal in time for the next push day. Assuming you're doing a push-pull legs, you're hitting everything every 100 hours. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you want more help, get a hold of me at Todd Lee MD on Instagram.